Listener, I just have one question for you today. Who was your favorite Ninja Turtle? Right, Raphael. I'm not listening to anything else. I'm sorry. If you said Leonardo, Michelangelo, Donatello, that's cool. Hey, you guys, we have a room for you. You can hang out. You can play Parcheesi, eat some pizza, whatever you want to do. The real ones know what's up, and they're all hanging out in the Raphael room. Okay? So, in case you haven't guessed it, today's episode has to do with the Ninja Turtles, Raphael in particular. Long ago, 35 years to be exact, New Line Cinema released the greatest Ninja Turtle movie ever made, Ninja Turtles #1. And Raphael from #1, who also came back to be Raphael in #2, well, his name is Kenn Scott. And I don't want to tell you about Kenn Scott. I want you to get to know Kenn Scott. So why don't you grab a slice of pizza? Why don't you pop open your favorite soda, whether it be a dad soda or whether it be a regular one? And let's go.
You know it's about that time to grab a bag of the stickiest itchy bond you can find and pearl one up.
Hey, what's up, man?
How's it going?
Good, man. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic.
First and foremost, hey, Ken, thanks for joining me today. Humble podcast as we are. We are a stealthy group of one who's not very stealthy. So, you know, it is what it is.
You got to work on your ninja skills then. That's the whole key, stealth.
That's it, man. I wish I could, but as a big guy, I live on the 3rd floor, so I know what steps not to touch, just from the years of being here, and which ones creak and things like that. Which ones will set my dogs. I have 2 dogs that go crazy, but other than that, not very stealthy, man. You can hear me breathing from a mile away. Ken, I'm gonna tell you like this right off the rip. I want to set the tone. I have a thing here. I think you'll love it. You're into martial arts, obviously. You know, that's what has blossomed the entire career from the beginnings of wanting to be in martial art films. So I have a thing I've developed called Kenn Scott versus the World, aka a pentagram of death. Okay. So let's say there's $1 million tax-free in the middle of, call it a ring, an arena, whatever it is in your head that you're imagining. And they call out these 5 names: Kenn Scott, Steven Seagal, Chuck Norris, Michael Jai White, and Bruce Lee, all in their prime. How does it go down?
Bruce Lee and Michael Jai White probably split the money. Well, wait a second. Chuck Norris in his prime. I'm going to say that Chuck and Bruce split the money and take Michael Jai White out to dinner while me and Steven lay bleeding on the ground.
How do you feel about Steven Seagal? Just as I get from a martial artist perspective.
Look, when I was a young martial artist coming up and Above the Law came out with Steven Seagal, I thought it was one of the most badass movies I had ever seen. And like the rest of the nation and even parts of the world, fell in love with Steven Seagal, the new action hero. So I thought he was totally badass. And I watched his next few films that all had titles with 3 words in them: Above the Law and How to Kill and all the other things that he did. And really enjoyed it. And, when I was first trying to figure out how to break into the movie business, I went to Los Angeles just on a pilgrimage. And I was driving through Los Angeles looking for Steven Seagal's Aikido school. It was right after Above the Law had come out. And I thought if I could just go meet Steven Seagal and talk to him, somehow he would help make my action hero dreams come true. So I drove all the way down Santa Monica Boulevard in the hot ass. I'd never experienced LA rush hour before, and I drove there exactly during rush hour. And for those that don't know, Santa Monica Boulevard traverses the entire city, and it's probably one of the most busy roads in the world. And it just took hours to get across LA. I'm baking in the hot sun. Finally, I get to La Cienega and Santa Monica, and right on the corner there is Steven Seagal's Aikido studio. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, this is it. This is it. So I straightened up my hair. I got out of my car. I straightened up my clothes. I had my little pictures and resume with me. And I walked up the stairs. It was a second story entrance. And I went and I pulled on the door, and it was locked. And it turns out his school was only open for like a few hours a week, only a couple of nights a week, something like that. I had this vision in my head that Steven Seagal would be sitting behind his desk, signing kids up for like 2-week trials with a free uniform, just waiting for me to walk in and go, I'm the next action hero. Put me in a movie. But it wasn't like that. He was off doing his own thing. And so I tried to go on a pilgrimage to meet Steven Seagal. I thought he was an amazing movie presence in what he did, and his Aikido accomplishments are quite amazing. You know, he's the first American guy to own and teach out of an Aikido dojo in Japan. So his pedigree's pretty good, martial arts wise, and his movies back in the original days were kick ass, man. So I was a Steven Seagal fan. Now he's turned into he's morphed into this whole other enigma that goes beyond my fandom and my explanation of the way humanity works. But, he's kicking ass in the world. So I can't, who am I to get mad at him?
That's true. It's just funny. He gets a lot of slack nowadays. Like a lot of, you see a lot of the videos and, he's just, but, and he's like, I assume he's like difficult to work with or whatever. I don't know. Never met the guy, but you always hear all this crazy stuff. And I'm like, and it makes you wonder, like, where on the level was he really?
Well, look, when it comes to martial arts, he was a legit Aikido instructor. Yeah. And, if you want to study Aikido, which is an amazing art, the sphere and all that kind of stuff, he knew what he was talking about, knows what he's talking about. I actually met Steven Seagal at a musician's rehearsal studio. I used to play in a band in Los Angeles, and my band was in there practicing. And in the studio right next door to us was Steven Seagal. He's quite an accomplished guitar player. And he has his own band. There's like 10 people in the band or whatever, and he's the lead guy. And he always wears these little kind of those kung fu kind of Nehru jackets with the collar and everything. Yeah. But yeah, he was there. I mean, he's a big, tall dude, but great guitar player.
Nice. Something you did not know. You believe in fate, man?
It's a big question, Paul.
It's a huge question.
I don't really know how you would define fate. So
okay, do you believe in like kismet, so to speak? Like things are meant to be?
I believe in the law of attraction and that positive vibe. I believe that vibrations attract one another of different signals. So there you go.
Because what I'm getting at here is I hear a lot. I hear on interviews you do, and in the book, Teenage Ninja to Mutant Turtle, how you first snuck on. Well, it was a sneak on the set with empty boxes, right? Boom, let's plug the book, right? You got onto the set with empty boxes of dominoes, and then, and then that coincided with you getting the part, right? Do you think it's kismet that it was fucking you got on with dominoes and like in the movie like they are, you know what I'm saying, like they're so you can't think about a Ninja Turtle without thinking about fucking pizza, so do you think it was kismet in a way? You think it's fate, man?
It all, like I said, I think it's the law of attraction, man. I'm a pizza guy. I have a pizza tattoo. I travel the world now. I consider myself a huge fan of pizza. I'm not a pizza expert, but right. In a room of pizza experts, I'm a fool. But in a room of normal people, I tend to know a little bit about pizza. And so when I travel the world with my Ninja Turtle friends and go to Comic-Cons, one of my responsibilities is I do all the research on each city that we're going to visit, and I try to find the best local pizza parlor in every city. And then me and the other turtles kind of go out for a private evening of eating pizza, because that's my jam, pizza.
Nice.
So I've loved it ever since I was a kid. It was my go-to birthday dinner, going out. I always tell people today there's a little game I play where I say, if you were going to go to the electric chair, what would your last meal be? And my last meal is pizza, French fries, and a brownie with a Coke. So pizza is my number one deal. So do I believe that pizza, in Kismet and fate and all that? I believe that, yes, my love of pizza, my understanding that everybody loves to open their door for the pizza delivery guy, because who doesn't want a fresh, hot pizza?
True.
That made me realize that if I dressed up like a pizza delivery guy, got some pizza boxes, and went to this movie studio in North Carolina, I bet I could probably talk my way in. Mind you, this was pre 9/11. I bet with those pizza boxes, I could talk my way into the movie studio, and ultimately, just like Steven Seagal's school, I didn't know what was behind the door, but I knew there must be some magical Wizard of Oz-like thing waiting there to grant me some golden fleece awaited me on the other side of this movie studio gate. And if I could get through it, all my dreams would come true. So for me, the power of pizza, I knew that everybody loved pizza and nobody wants to turn down the pizza delivery guy. And nobody wants to be responsible for when a director or a producer or anybody comes to the door and says, hey, I ordered a pizza 2 hours ago. Did it ever come? And if you're the guy that says, oh, I sent them away, then you're up shit creek. So I felt like the power of the pizza got me where I needed to be. And to this day, it still fulfills my needs.
What's some of your favorite places around the States?
Oh, man. Well, number one was, I'm sort of a bandwagoner here, but when Brian Tochi, star of Revenge of the Nerds and Police Academy, but also plays the voice of Leonardo in the first three movies, when he and I went to do a Comic-Con in New York, I think it was the Undiscovered Realm Comic-Con in White Plains, New York. I called Brian up and I said, Brian, you're flying in a day early. I'm renting a car and we're driving up to New Haven, Connecticut, which is kind of the mecca of pizza right now in the United States. They have 100-year-old restaurants. They're still cooking in coal-fired ovens that used to be big bakery ovens. So we did a pizza tour, and one day I drove Brian up to New Haven, Connecticut, and we did a tour of the three of the most popular pizza spots there are. We went to Frank Pepe's, Sally's, and Modern Pizzeria, and man, we just had the time of our lives. So I think those are probably my number one pizzas, but I can find fantastic pizza wherever I go. So I'm always looking forward to whatever the next con is and finding the next great pie.
Me and you are one of the same. I've never had those per se, those three places, but Connecticut pizza, something about Connecticut pizza, man. I don't know.
I highly recommend you get in a car and drive those 2 hours and go on a pizza pilgrimage, because it is worth it.
We just traveled to Vegas. We drove on Route 70 all the way across. We drove to Vegas and back last month. And it was amazing. We had some really good food. We finally tried Chicago deep dish style pizza for the first time. That was great.
Yeah, we just got back from Chicago, and we went to Lou Malnati's for deep dish. Okay. And then I can't think of it right now. And then we went somewhere else for tavern pizza. Had to try both kinds in Chicago.
Nice. How was that trip?
It was fantastic, man. Had a great. Every time I travel with my Ninja Turtle colleagues and cast members, we just have a great time. We're like a family, just like the Turtles themselves. Robbie Rist, the voice of Michelangelo, Brian Tochi, the voice of Leonardo, Ernie Reyes Jr., who was in the in the Donatello suit in the first movie, and was Keno, the pizza delivery guy, in the second movie. Francois Chow plays the Shredder. Judith Hogue, the original April O'Neil. That's a core group that we travel with, but we also travel with James Saito, the original Shredder. Sometimes we see Leif Tilden or Josh Pais or Michelin Sisti. So every time the Turtle crew gets together, we just have a ball. It almost doesn't matter what city we're in or where we're at. It's a great time to get together and experience not only our opportunities to get together and share what's going on in our lives, but to have this communal experience with Ninja Turtle fans where they get to sort of come out and proclaim and share their love and what Ninja Turtles has meant to them. And to be on the receiving end of that is like an incredible blessing. So doing all that kind of stuff together, we always have a great time wherever we are.
The Turtles are generational, and they're going to continue to be generational. They're one of those things that, you know, gets passed down, gets passed down, gets passed down, and now those growing up on it now are going to pass it down again. You know what I mean? It's perpetual is I think the word I'm looking for.
At the cons right now, your key Ninja Turtle fan, especially from the movies, is between the ages of 35 to 47, 48 years old. Because the movie is now 35 years old. So when you have all these guys, all these kids that were 6 and 7 or whatever, you know, they're now in their early 40s, stuff like that. So what happens is when I'm at a Comic-Con, I'll have 3 people walk up to my table at once. In the middle will be the 40-year-old guy or girl or whoever it is. With them will be their 65 or whatever year-old mother or father who will say, man, growing up, I had to buy my kid all the toys, all the lunch boxes. We had the toys everywhere. And then that parent will tell me that I was their favorite turtle or somebody else was their favorite turtle. But then in addition, the third person that comes is that middle Ninja Turtle, that 40-year-old's kid. And the 40-year-old is now turning their 11 or 10-year-old onto Ninja Turtles. So we'll get 3 generations out of one family that walk up and are like, I love Ninja Turtles, I love Raph, I love Leo, whatever it is. And that's pretty amazing. You don't see that with a lot of different franchises that are out there, a lot of intellectual properties.
It's true. It's withstood the test of time, and will continue to do so. But what's your relationship like with Peter Laird, man?
Peter Laird, I only met once in my life. I met Peter on the set of Ninja Turtles when he first came down, and he was very, very nice to everybody. And why wouldn't he and Kevin be? You know,
right? Yeah.
They showed up. They brought comics of the movie script and they signed them. So I have actually an original Ninja Turtle comic. Nice. Not one of the original Ninja Turtles, but one of the movie-based comics, signed and drawn in by every original artist: Jim Lawson, Steve Levine, Peter Laird, Kevin Eastman. So Peter doesn't really travel that much. He doesn't do a lot of cons. He doesn't do a lot of appearances. He's a very private individual who keeps to himself. Now, Kevin, on the other hand, I see Kevin Eastman quite a bit at cons. Kevin does a lot of things in life. He's an amazingly creative individual, but one of the things that he does so well is he lives to give back to Ninja Turtle fans. He knows and recognizes what a blessing, and the way he and Peter caught lightning in a bottle, and it's been very good to him. He travels to cons. He spends hours and hours and hours with the fans, talking to them. He stays afterwards. And I always say this about Kevin Eastman. Kevin, when he's talking to you, and it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter if it's me from the Ninja Turtles or just some fan at a Comic-Con, when he's talking to you, he makes you feel like you are the only person in the universe at that moment. And he is incredible. So I don't have I've seen Kevin many, many times over the many decades. We have a couple of mutual friends. Some of these drawings that I have on the wall behind me are done by Kevin Eastman and some of the other artists. That's a Steve Levine right there. This is a Ben Bishop who does the Last Ronin. So nice. I enjoy hanging out with these guys. But Kevin, we've just had great times. And if there's any fan out there who hasn't had a chance to meet Kevin, if you see him coming to a con anywhere near you and you've got Ninja Turtle fever, go meet that guy. It is well worth it, and he'll make you feel special, and it makes Ninja Turtles all that much more special too.
One thing I'm always curious about, when did cons start becoming lucrative for you?
Who said they're lucrative? I come back from cons broke. I spend all my money on pizza.
Oh, no way. No way. No way.
No, cons have always been good. You get a chance to meet fans, and sometimes people pay for autographs or pictures or things like that, and that's good. What's really great about it, though, is the promoters bring you out there to meet the fans. They want you to come to their con. So the idea that I get to go spend a weekend, hopefully in a nice place, and sit there and have a shared experience with all these Ninja Turtle fans. Not everybody gets to do that,
Right,
Certainly,
absolutely.
a lot of different quote unquote celebrities and wrestlers and all these kinds of people get to go to the cons, but your average person doesn't get to sit on our side of the table at a con. The average person is on the fan side of the table. So to be on our side of the table is such an amazing gift, to be able to go there, to have people line up to tell you how much your work or projects you've been associated with have meant to them, that it just feeds your soul. So, it's no matter what happens at the con, when you have great fans there, it's well worth the time and the experience.
After the first Turtle movie exploded, right? Did you start collecting the figures afterwards, since you're like, oh, dude, I mean, I'm this guy?
No, a lot of people feel like if you're in the Ninja Turtle movie, you're probably a Ninja Turtle fan and a Ninja Turtle collector and all those kinds of things. Because how could you not be? It's part of your blood now. When I got the job in Ninja Turtles, although I had heard the title of the comic book several years before, because I was in martial arts. So somebody goes, hey, did you ever hear of this thing called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? And I was like, whatever. I was reading Captain America,
Right.
comics at the time. So I had never seen a Ninja Turtle comic book, didn't know anything about it, got hired on the movie. While I'm in the movie, I look up and I see somebody walking across the soundstage, and I go, who's that? And one of the guys next to me goes, oh, that's April O'Neil. And I go, who's April O'Neil? And they go, oh, that's the Turtle's best friend, and she's a reporter, and she does this. And then I see somebody else. I go, who's that? They go, that's Casey Jones. I'm like, who's Casey Jones? So I had to get everything explained to me. And then once I read the script, then I had a better idea of everything that was going on. So I didn't come into the Ninja Turtles as a Ninja Turtle fan. And I always kind of tell people, I go, my Ninja Turtle experience is different than the average person's, because mine is behind the mask. Absolutely. I'm looking out into the Turtleverse rather than looking into the Turtleverse. I'm looking out to it. So to this day, because I've seen so many NECA figures and so many Funko Pops, I do think there's a couple of pieces out there that really speak to me just creatively. I just really like them. Like I'm looking up my shelf now. I have the TMNT #1 movie NECA Raphael. Nice. And for those that don't know, in the first movie, I'm also the fellow chucker that goes against Michelangelo. I'm the ninja's foot soldier that swings the nunchucks. So I also have the NECA foot soldier figure, nice. Which I'm hoping, if my friends at NECA do, that they may put out a box for that figure that says fellow chucker on it. We'll see if that happens. I'm hoping. # fellow chucker. And then I have a couple of Funko Pops. I have the Funko Pop of Raphael in the trench coat with the hat, because I think that's very cool and iconic. And then I loved the pop art Funko Pop that Target put out with the pop art painting all over it. I just thought that was so cool.
In the hard shell, right? In the hard plastic.
So the only other one I have is the one of my favorite figures, takes two of my favorite things and put it together. The NECA Universal Monster Movies mashup. I have the Raphael and Frankenstein's monster mashup, because I love that. I love that original movie. So those are the only figures I have, but I love them.
Nice. Talk about the Universal Studios mashup. I had the 1992 and 1993. There was 4 of them of each. I had the whole set, and during COVID, like I didn't need the money or nothing, but people were just spewing out fucking money for figures. So I was like, yeah, I'll sell both sets. Sold both sets, and now just one of them, just one, the Michelangelo Invisible Man, is worth what I sold the entire set for. I was like, get out of here, dude.
No.
I don't know. I was just like, yeah, it's such a good deal. Now I look at it, I'm like, no, that was peanuts, man.
You never know what you got till it's gone.
It's true. I don't know. I'm a buyer seller of, like I like to do cards and figures, Funko Pops, shit like that. Like, it's it's interesting. I'm one of those people where I like to be like, hey, take a picture with it, or take a picture of it. Like, yeah, I owned that. I mean, I still have it now, but yeah, it was I had it. Like like somebody told me that you had the original size, right, from the Ninja Turtles, and then you sold them for like 15 grand.
Well, I won't say how much I sold them for, but I did sell them for a good chunk of change.
That's cool. You know what? Hey, listen. Either way, know what? No matter what, no shade here, man. Like I said, collector mindset. I mean, when you have it, doesn't matter if what you're associated with, because guess what? Nobody can take away the character that you are or the character that you help bring to life. So no matter what, like you said, you're looking out, they're looking in. You get what I'm saying? For the fandom. So for you, for that, whatever the monetary value was, the emotional connection now that person has with that far exceeds the monetary value, no matter if it was a dollar, because it's handed down from fucking Raphael. I mean, let's be real.
I'm a minimalist by nature. I don't like to collect a lot of things, and
Gotcha.
there comes a point where like you said, I've got the memories, I've got the things. Looking at a thing is fine. I can remember things all day long. I still have stuff from the movie. I have both original scripts from the first movie and the second
I know.
movie.
I actually worked with New Line. They want me to serve you papers for stealing that one with the
Yeah.
storyboard on it.
Yep.
I'm not even going to bring it up, but just know I did you a solid.
Yeah, thanks.
35 years,
I think
35 years later, man.
The statute of limitations, not to mention the fact that after I took that script, I actually got hired as a SAG performer on the movie, so I was entitled to it. So you got no case, Paul. You got no case.
It's funny. No, but no, I've heard you talk about the story about how you got the first one. You were like, it's like shit, man. There's a stack of them here as you were walking out, tucking it in. I thought that was cool, man. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. I mean, like you said, you're a part of it. It's like, come on, I want that.
That's the story of my life, man. You got to do what you got to do. You got to, once you figure out what you want to do, go figure out how to do it and then do it,
Yeah.
And that's what my whole book is basically about was, hey, I decided when I was 13 years old what I wanted to do with my life. And then I put all my intention, my energy, and again, law of attraction. I put those vibrations out there. And, you can't just sit on your ass and have things come to you just because you're thinking about it. You got to work towards it. That's what creates vibrations in the world. And I just worked and worked and worked and did everything I could. I refused to take no for an answer. And, like you just said, I did what I had to do. And now 35 years later, here we are talking about it,
Right. That's cool, man. That's it sucks that speaking about the mementos from the movies. Do you have anything from number 2, or was the size from number 2, or am I mistaken here? Or
no, the size got held over. The same prop master had the size and just carried him over from one movie. They knew they were making a second movie while the first movie was still in movie theaters.
They're printing money, dude.
Well, they had to wait and see how it goes. They were very concerned about how the movie was going to go. They didn't know they had a successful movie on their hand. They feared that they had a movie that was too dark, both in terms of the way it looked and in the tone of the film itself.
Yep.
And they were concerned that they would have what's called a tweener, where it was between little kids and adults and might fall into this no man's land in between. Right. So it was kind of like that cliched story out of the movies themselves. The producers were in New York. They got in a car. They drove to the movie theater on opening night, and there was lines around the block to see the movie. So they just waited a few days. It was the biggest independent film opening of all time up to that point. And then within a couple of weeks of opening, they were like, okay, we know we're going on number 2. So a lot of the department heads and things like that, they don't throw that stuff away right away. Sometimes they hold it onto it because they know, there might be sequels in the mix there. So from number 2, I kept the script. I got I don't know if I got my call sheet. I have my little pass that allowed me to get into the Carolco movie studios. It says Raphael on it. I got my crew jacket, stuff like that. The crew jackets were originally from the first one. They didn't make crew jackets for the second one. They made T-shirts for the second one.
Gotcha.
But I actually had a crew jacket made on the second one because my first one from the first movie got stolen.
Oh, dude, that sucks, dude.
Yeah,
People are assholes, man. Like, you know,
Yeah.
if it's like, don't touch it if it ain't yours. Hey, a lot of people can't. They just don't. You can't grasp that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Somewhere around the world, someone's walking around with my jacket and my passport.
Yep. You're that, and they're selling it. They just don't put this on eBay. Just don't put this on eBay.
Yeah.
It'll pop up one day, just like Dorothy's slippers, man. You know what I mean? You got any Kevin Nash stories?
I beat his ass one time, gave him a bloody nose and kicked him in the balls. No, I didn't do that. Basically, I've encountered Kevin Nash twice and maybe three, well, more than that, really. I see Kevin Nash at Comic-Cons now. So when I see him at Comic-Cons, we smile, we say hello, we say, oh, yeah, Ninja Turtles, and we shake hands and all that. On the first movie, man, he was in his early 20s, I think, when he worked on that movie. He was brand new, just kind of breaking into wrestling and all that stuff. And for those that don't know, he played the Super Shredder. After the Shredder drinks the Jekyll and Hyde ooze, he morphs into this giant shredder called the Super Shredder. And they actually wanted him to be a big guy, so they put 6'7" or 6'11", whatever he is. They put Kevin Nash in this Super Shredder suit. And there's two or three things I remember about Kevin. One was he got really mad that they were painting muscles and abs onto the Super Shredder costume. He wanted to feel beefy enough, but he was okay with it after they talked to him about it. The second thing was when he was relaxing, walking. You know, when you're working on a movie set, you have a lot of downtime. Less time is spent performing in front of the camera. More time is spent waiting for them to set cameras up and lights up and things like that. So when you're doing a movie like Ninja Turtles where people are wearing suits, whether it's a Ninja Turtle suit or Toka and Razar, the Snapping Turtle and the Wolverine, or even the Shredder or the Super Shredder, these suits can be uncomfortable quite a bit, and they're not easy to sit around in. For instance, the Ninja Turtles, when you have a Ninja Turtle shell on your back, it's impossible to sit in a normal chair because the shell gets in your way. So they actually had to make custom-made chairs for us that was almost like sitting on a bicycle. It was like a sawhorse, and you'd straddle this like 2x4 between your legs, and then they had this thing that we could lean forward on because you can't lean back. So they had to build us our own chairs to sit in. For Kevin, the Super Shredder boots were quite large and cumbersome. So in between takes, he didn't really want to wear them, and they didn't want him to mess them up. So he needed some other footwear to kind of walk around the soundstage while he was waiting to go. So the ladies in the wardrobe department did something really funny. They took this giant Kevin Nash Super Shredder guy, and they made him these really feminine pink bedroom slippers with like the little lace and the frill and everything falling off him. So whenever he was kicking back on set, he had his bedroom slippers on, which are adorable.
Nice.
The other thing was when Kevin first came to the movie, we had to work on a little bit of choreography. And Pat Johnson, legendary stunt coordinator, fight choreographer Pat Johnson, who did the original Karate Kid movies and has an appearance in the original Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee. So he goes way back. He used to run Chuck Norris's premier karate school, Sherman Oaks Karate in California.
To push you to be Raph, right?
Yeah, very much so. Pat was like my father figure on the movie, did a lot for me. Nice. When he was trying to work with Kevin on the fight scenes, we worked it out. You know, it's going to go like this. One of the turtles is going to come up and throw a punch, and it's going to hit you in the face, and you got to react to it. So we were practicing, and when you do stunt fighting, you don't really make contact with anybody. You use camera angles to stack people on top of one another, and it makes it look like they're getting hit as long as the timing is good and the sound effect is there. So you use camera angles to try to create the impression and the illusion that you're actually beating somebody up. Now that's not always the case. If you go and look at certain Hong Kong filmmaking or filmmaking they do in Thailand, they have stunt guys that get the living shit beat out of them in order to get these amazing shots. Well, in America, that's not the way we do it. So Pat was working with Kevin, and he said, all right, this turtle's going to come up, he's going to throw a punch, and your head's going to move like this. Ready, action. The turtle threw the punch, and Kevin didn't really react. And Pat's like, hey, you got to kind of move your head. Well, Kevin was used to the world of wrestling. So Kevin turns to Pat and he goes, well, go ahead and hit me. And Pat was like, excuse me? And Kevin's like, yeah, I can take it. Just go ahead and hit me and I'll take the hit. And Pat's like, Kevin, that's not how we do things. You don't have a long career in stunts. If that's how you're going to do things, let me explain it to you. So there was this little bit of education that we had to go through with Kevin to get him on board. Now, it's not like he was an idiot or a dummy. He understood these things, but he was telling
adaptation
Pat,
to the new world.
Yeah. And Pat was just like, hey, that's not the way we do things here. We're going to protect everybody. Let's work together on this.
Can you imagine with him, dude? Just a momentum alone, dude. Probably would have taken him down. Then probably would have got mad. I mean, a guy of that stature, you can imagine a guy much smaller than him. It would hurt your ego. You know what I mean? Especially like you said, early 20s, mid 20s, coming up in the game.
I've been a martial artist since 1979, and I still practice today. It's the backbone of my life. It's my religion. It's everything. It guides my life. And I walk around, I'm almost 60 now, and there's a lot, I'm not like I was when I was 25 or 30, but I still feel fairly confident when I walk into a room that should anything happen, I'm at least equipped to try to handle myself and take care of myself or my loved ones or anything like that. Now, I'm sure that I'm overestimating my abilities and I'm overconfident, but at least I'd rather feel that way than feel afraid, because it allows me to kind of walk around with confidence. I'm not looking for a fight, but I feel like, okay, I can take care of myself. The opposite of that for me is when I'm at Comic-Cons, and I was with Kevin Nash one day, and after looking at Kevin Nash and talking to Kevin Nash, I then started talking to a former UFC fighter and UFC Hall of Famer named Frank Trigg. And Frank is now currently a UFC referee and also works as a stuntman in Hollywood. Now, mind you, Frank is probably a little bit taller than me. He's probably close to 6 feet, let's say, but I have no idea. Built rock solid, even though he's now in his mid 50s or late 50s or whatever he is. And he's been in rings with men trying to beat the living shit out of him and punching each other in the face and kicking each other. With all my 45 years of martial arts training and feeling good about myself, I sat at this area and I looked at Kevin and I looked at Frank and I was like, there's not a fucking thing I could do to either one of these guys should they decide they want to destroy me. I might get lucky. I might get a finger poke into their eye. Maybe I can get a thumb up between their balls or something and try to hurt them in such a way. But truth be told, these guys have been beat on by huge behemoth men their whole lives. They've taken pain. They know what it is to make contact. And I just feel like I could have never taken a karate lesson in my life, and I'd still have the same chance against those guys. They are badasses.
They take pain like Oliver Twist drinks porridge. You know what I mean? Like, I know that's a scary feeling too, man. Talking about fucking protection and things like that, right? You made a training film for the CIA?
I did.
What's all this about?
Well, after I acted and performed in front of the camera, I turned my attention to writing and producing and directing and moving behind the camera.
Okay.
And ultimately made several short films, ultimately raised money and made a feature film called Adventures of Johnny Dow, and also worked on some television shows. Worked on a show for the Discovery Channel, the History Channel, worked on some things about military snipers, worked on historical action recreation. And my job on a lot of these shows was I was the second unit director. So it was my job to hire all the stunt guys, be the stunt coordinator, choreograph all the action, and then work with the cinematographer to shoot the action. That was my job. Well, it turns out that one of the producers on one of these TV shows also got hired by the CIA to make training films for the CIA. And there's all kinds of training films you can make for different parts of the CIA. The training films we were making were to be shown to agents and families that were going to be doing duty overseas. Okay. And we had to make films that said, do this, don't do this, be careful about this. What happens if this happens? All these kinds of things that tried to teach people, hey, you're with the CIA now, so be cool. Don't be talking, loose lips, sink ships, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Well, the result and the consequences, because they wanted people to know if you screw up, the consequences can be bad. The consequences that we had to show were often violent or action-packed sequences and outbursts of things that happened. For instance, if you're sitting in an outdoor cafe and you happen to mention to somebody else that your spouse has a meeting tomorrow at 5 at such and such a place, you might think you're saying something innocuous, but because somebody's listening and putting other pieces together, they might know that somebody else is going to be there and this and that sets off a bomb, which creates a whole thing and people get killed and all that. So it was my job to choreograph all these various pieces of action, which was everything from military raids to IEDs going off to riots on college campuses and things like that. And so that was my job, create all the action to let people know, don't fuck shit up when you go overseas for the CIA.
Oh, man. You always hear, I mean, well, I don't really hear too much about CIA issues, but you always hear about people going overseas, man, and getting fucked up, man. Just over there, doing the wrong thing. But, a lot of people nowadays, common sense just isn't so common. You know what I mean? Like, people over there go around and they, like, I don't know. Me, international travel, to me, I'm like, it's weird to me. That's a weird concept just because I guess personally, like I live under the umbrella of people hate Americans. So like, I just don't want to go anywhere and then be like, oh yeah, hey, having a good time. Then all of a sudden you look around and it's like a movie and you're like, wait a minute. Yeah, shit's about to go down. You know what I mean? And then poof, what may have you fucking, turns into third world country real quick,
Well, I always say, whenever people travel, I love to travel now. I always say, don't be the ugly American,
Right.
Don't be that person. Don't make that spectacle out of yourself. Don't be ignorant. Read a book. Study some of the language before you go. Learn the customs. Drives me crazy when I go. I follow a lot of martial arts practice and stuff like that. I've been to various parts of Asia, and very simple things that you can learn before you travel about customs and things like that. About don't do this to a person. Don't do these hand gestures. Don't do this. Make sure you do, just stuff. It's so easy, but people are just so freaking lazy. They go up, they embarrass themselves and all that. Now, that has nothing to do with the political situation in the world, which is going to, drive some people to have predispositions towards Americans or anything like that. But even if so, one of my things in life is not only was I a Ninja Turtle, but just like my book is called, it's called Teenage Ninja to Mutant Turtle. I'm not Japanese. I didn't grow up in a ninja clan or anything like that. But I try to live by the principles of Bushido and being a stealthy, cool, calm warrior, no matter what I do. And so I think that's when it comes to travel, you can go anywhere and be cool if you're not wearing your Budweiser hat and your American flag T-shirt and dropping your shit on the ground and going, "Don't you speak English?"
Yeah, right. It's and the common sense isn't so common, man. I don't know. It's weird. Etiquette, man. Etiquette lacks nowadays. A lot of people, like you said, that doesn't take much just to, brush up on the culture and society of what you're going to go to. But a lot of people don't think like that.
One of those TV shows I worked on, shot in Lithuania. Okay. And I'm writing a second book right now, and the first book ends right after we finished filming the second Ninja Turtle movie, and that autobiography about how I got the job and then how we made the movies and all that. And then the first book ends. The second book because the first book was successful enough and got enough positive critical reviews, and I just loved writing it so much, I chose to write a second book. That second book now continues on that journey of the things I did in Hollywood and how I broke into the movie business and stopped being a Ninja Turtle and became a live human action movie actor and all that kind of stuff. But one of the stories I tell in the book is I go to Lithuania to direct one of these TV shows as the second unit director, stunt coordinator. And right before I went, I did what I used my common sense, which is what I thought everybody would have done. I went to the bookstore and I bought one of those Lonely Planet travel hiker books about Lithuania. And I read it. And I read, oh, here's some language and here's the food they eat. And make sure you do this and don't do that. And as soon as I got off the airplane and they picked me up, I tried to use some of my Lithuanian. I said, oh, and I knew this is post-Soviet Union, right? This is after the break with the Soviet Union. And Lithuania was part of the Soviet Union at one time. I knew, don't speak Russian. If you speak Russian, they will find that offensive. So I learned some Lithuanian. And as soon as they picked me up, I said hello and how are you and whatever it was I learned in Lithuanian. And their friggin' jaws hit the ground. And they turned to me. Now, mind you, I was the last crew member to arrive in Lithuania. Everybody else had already been there for a couple of weeks working on the show before my sections were coming up. So when I got there, they said to me, you are the first and only person to try to learn any of our language. Thank you so much. And I was dumbfounded. I couldn't believe that nobody else, it just seemed common sense to me. But I guess it's not so common, like you said. Nobody took the time to learn how to say hello, goodbye, thank you, whatever it was. And it makes such a difference, you know?
Absolutely. It starts that stepping stone off real nice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, you're not fumbling around, you know what I mean? And they're not having to be like, this guy, you know what I mean? Like there's some kind of connection that's already made, you know, in a sea of disconnections. I'm sure after a point you were lost in translation at some point. So, but to have that stepping stone to start off with, that's cool, man. It's not, like you said, not a lot of people think to do that.
Yeah.
I've heard you talk before, right, about coming on as a foot soldier in #1 before you made the transition and how it got billed as, you know, you were a fellow chucker, and making $75 a day while on set, right? What was the bump up from #2 when you came back?
If you look at in the first movie, I'm three different things.
Yes.
I started as what they consider a special abilities extra, and that's where I was one of the foot soldiers.
Right.
Then I became talkative foot #2, which is the 26th credit in the movie at the end of the actors. And that's where I got my Screen Actors Guild card and went from being a $75 a day extra to becoming a full Screen Actors Guild daily performer doing all that stuff. But then early on in the movie, that didn't last very long because early on in the movie, the guy that was doing all the martial arts and fighting for Raphael got hurt and broke his nose. Right. I took his place, and that became a standard Screen Actors Guild stunt performer contract where I became Raphael the Turtle. So in the first movie, I was Special Abilities Extra, talkative foot #2, and then in the credits, I'm part of the Turtle Stunt Double team.
So going into Secret of the Ooze, so there was a good bump up for that. Was there anything on the back end?
No, that's a big star move. Regular Screen Actors Guild standard weekly and day player actors don't get anything on the back end of movies. If you're Brad Pitt, Arnold Schwarzenegger, something like that, then you get back end points. But no, everybody that worked on the movie, we all worked under Screen Actors Guild union contracts. And, you know, those paid pretty well. I mean, it was at that point in my life, it was the most money I'd ever made. You know, for doing 1 day's worth of work or 1 week or 2 weeks or 3 or whatever it turned into. You know, the first movie I think was 9 weeks plus 3 weeks of rehearsal. Second movie was probably the same thing, 9 weeks with like 3 weeks of rehearsal and costumes and all that kind of stuff. So for those, you know, 12, 13 weeks, whatever it was, I mean, man, I was making Screen Actors Guild money. That's, you know, you're not, now again, I don't want anybody to be fooled. I'm not making $1 million. You know, I'm not making hundreds of thousands of dollars to be a Ninja Turtle. We're getting paid Screen Actors Guild minimums are just over. When you're a Ninja Turtle, you're probably making, you know, somewhere between 2,500 to 3,500 bucks a week or something like that, you know? So, and then you get residuals once it starts running on TV, and back when it used to go to VHS tapes and stuff like that. So you make a little money like that. Residuals are all pretty much gone now because streaming has kind of killed that.
Streaming's killed it. So we hear, man.
Yeah.
Well, Ken, I tell you what, my friend, you've been more than generous with your time today. Before we get out of here, I have one question, universal question I ask every person that comes on here, because in my eyes, every person that comes on here embodies the word success in some way, shape, or form. So my question for you would be, how does Kenn Scott determine success in his personal life?
The way I define personal success in my personal life is when I find those moments where I don't get in my own way and life flows freely and the way that it should. If I can stop trying to be what I think I'm supposed to be or what I think other people think I'm supposed to be and just be, then I'm at my happiest and feeling the most bounty in my life. And it's those moments when I'm able to relax and feel the flow that I feel like I am successful.
Like that, man. And you, with your endeavors, man, you've had great success for the last 35 years, and I hope you another 35 years plus, my friend.
Back at you, Pawley. I wish you the same. I've really enjoyed spending the time talking to you. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you for inviting me here to join you. It's been great, man.
My friend, you have a great night, man. Have a great... Oh, you know what? Real quick. Hey, favorite pizza topping? Like, I didn't even ask. Is it pepperoni, right?
Yeah. I have my two favorite types of pizza. One is anchovy. I love anchovy pizza. Yep.
Okay.
And my second favorite, when you put it all together, is pepperoni and jalapeno.
Oh, yeah. You got to have a little spice, man.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sounds good, man. Thanks a lot, my friend. You have a great night, man. Thanks again.
Right on. Hey, cowabunga to you, man.
All right, cowabunga.
See you later, Paulie.
See ya.